All right, so picture this, the UK. It's like this swanky party, right?
Okay.
But all the millionaires, they're kind of sneaking out the back door, you
That's
know?
interesting.
Yeah. It's weird, right? And we're going to find out why in this deep dive. We're looking at this Henley and Partners report.
Okay.
It's got all these numbers about millionaires moving around the world.
Fascinating.
So let's really try to understand what's making these millionaires ditch the UK. What's going on?
Well, a good starting point, I think, would be to look at a specific example.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Sir James Ratcliffe?
Vaguely.
Hmm?
Rings a bell. Big business guy, right?
Yeah, that's one way to put it. He built this huge company called INEOS. It's like a global empire, petrochemicals, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, started from nothing. Public housing, worked his way up, got knighted, even became the richest man in the UK for a while.
Oh, wow. Okay, so like a real rags to riches story.
Exactly.
But what's that got to do with all these millionaires leaving?
Well, here's the thing. Despite all that success, contributing so much to the UK economy, Ratcliffe, he moved to Monaco in 2020.
Really?
Yeah, and he wasn't alone. His two main business partners, Andy Curry and John Rees, they went with him.
So even people who've done amazingly well in the UK, they're choosing to leave.
It seems that way.
It's got to tell you something, right?
It does, and it's not just a few isolated cases. When you look at the numbers, Ratcliffe and his partners, they're just part of this much bigger trend.
Okay.
Between 2017 and 2023, get this, the UK lost 16,500 millionaires.
16,500.
Yeah, all because of immigration.
That's wild. I mean, that's such a huge number.
It is, and it's even more striking when you put it in a global context.
Yeah.
This year, 2024, we're on track to see a record-breaking 128,000 millionaires relocate.
Globally.
Yeah, globally. And the UK is projected to lose a whopping 9,500 of those.
Wow.
Yeah, that puts them right up there with the country seeing the biggest outflow of millionaires.
Okay, so much wealth just walking out the door makes you wonder where they all going.
Good question. The top destination right now is the United Arab Emirates. They're expecting to welcome 6,700 millionaires just this year.
The UAE.
Wow. It's becoming this global hub, attracting people from all over India, Russia, Africa, Europe, even the UK, as we've seen.
What is it about the UAE that's so appealing to these millionaires?
Well, there are a few things. The tax situation is really favorable. No personal income tax, which is a big draw.
I bet.
Yeah. Plus, they've put a lot of money into infrastructure, amazing airports, business centers, and the lifestyle's pretty attractive, too.
Yeah, Dubai, right? All that luxury and glitz.
Exactly. But of course, there are always downsides,
Right.
Their economy depends a lot on things like tourism and real estate, which can be unpredictable, and all this new wealth could make existing inequalities worse.
That makes sense.
But for a lot of millionaires, the benefits seem to outweigh the risks.
So it sounds like the UK's got some serious competition. I
Definitely.
mean, if all these millionaires are flocking to places like the UAE, what's pushing them away from the UK? You can't just be the sunshine and the tax breaks, right?
Oh, no, not at all. There are a bunch of factors contributing to this exodus from the UK. Some have been building for a while now.
Okay.
Brexit, for one, It created a lot of uncertainty, and complexity made the UK less appealing to some. Then there's the energy crisis from the war in Ukraine. Energy prices are up. The economy's unstable.
Okay.
And then you've got inflation eating away at everyone's purchasing power.
Right. It's like everything's getting more expensive.
Exactly. There's this general feeling of unease about the economy.
Yeah. It sounds like the UK's party isn't as fun as it used to be.
Right. And then came what a lot of people saw as a turning point. The new Labour government and their tax policies.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about those.
Yeah.
Starting with the non-dom tax regime. I'll be honest, I'm not totally sure what that even is.
So it was this old rule over 200 years old. It let UK residents with ties to other countries avoid paying UK taxes on income they earned outside the UK.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the Labour government argued it was outdated, unfair, that it mostly benefited the wealthy.
So they got rid of it.
Yeah, they did. They think it'll bring in around £2.6 billion. That's like $3.4 billion during their term.
Wow.
It's a lot of money. They say it'll help deal with the UK's budget deficit.
But how did people react to that? I mean, getting rid of that rule.
Well, not everyone's happy about it. A study by Oxford Economics found that 63% of wealthy investors are thinking about leaving the UK the next 2 years because of this change.
63%. Wow.
Yeah, they feel like the rules have changed suddenly and it's not in their favor.
I can see why they'd be upset. It's a big shift in how they're taxed.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the non-dom rule that changed. There were other tax policy changes too.
Right, like the inheritance tax. Didn't that change as well?
Yeah, that's another big one. Now, even if someone leaves the UK, they could still have to pay inheritance tax on their assets for another 10 years.
10 years even after they've moved.
That's right. And according to that same Oxford economics study, 83% of wealthy individuals said this inheritance tax was the main reason they wanted to leave.
83%. That's huge.
It's a big deal, especially for people who want to pass on their wealth to their kids.
Yeah, it's like a big disincentive.
Right. And then there's a whole thing with private school fees.
Oh, yeah. What happened there?
Well, the new government added a 20% VAT on private school fees.
On top of the regular tuition.
Exactly. So for families who are already paying a lot for their kids' education, it's a huge extra cost.
Yeah, that's gotta hurt.
It does. So you've got Brexit, the energy crisis, rising inflation, and now these new tax policies. It's no wonder some millionaires are feeling like the UK isn't so welcoming anymore.
Especially when you compare it to somewhere like Dubai. No income tax, no capital gains tax, no inheritance tax. It's like a whole different world.
It is. It's like one place is rolling out the red carpet and the other's putting up fences.
Exactly.
And this brings up a really important question. What does all of this mean for the future of the UK?
Yeah, I mean, what is going to happen?
We need to unpack that, but let's do it after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back in a minute.
So the UK's in this tough spot, right? They've got this massive budget deficit, £22 billion.
22 billion.
Or $28 billion.
That's a lot.
It is. And the new government, they're trying to, raise money, close that gap, which makes sense. But are these tax policies really the best way to do it? Some economists are saying they could actually make things worse.
How so?
Well, the worry is that these policies, even though they're meant to bring in more money, they might actually scare off investors and entrepreneurs.
I see.
If wealthy people feel like they're being unfairly targeted, they might be less likely to invest in businesses or create jobs here.
Right, so it's a balancing act. The government needs to raise money, but they can't kill economic growth in the process.
Exactly.
Are there any other ideas being thrown around about how to deal with this?
Yeah, there's been some talk about putting in an exit tax for people who leave the UK.
An exit tax? What's that?
So basically, it'd be like a final payment you have to make when you leave the country to help cover the cost of you leaving.
Oh, interesting. So like a parting gift, but not really a gift.
Yeah. Right. More like a mandatory donation. Economists from places like the Center for Tax Analysis, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the Resolution Foundation, they've all suggested this as a way to raise revenue. They think it could bring in as much as £500 million or $650 million each year.
Wow. And I guess it could also discourage people from leaving if they know they'll have to pay to get out.
Exactly. It's a two birds, one stone kind of thing.
But is it actually a good idea? I mean, would it work?
Well, it's definitely controversial. Some people say it would hurt the UK's reputation, make it seem less welcoming to investors and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, who would want to move somewhere knowing they'll get hit with a big bill if they decide to leave later?
Right. It kind of sends the wrong message. Like,
Yeah.
the UK is more interested in taking people's money than in creating opportunities.
Yeah, like a trap almost.
Exactly. So the UK government is in a tough spot. Finance Minister Rachel Reeves, she's blamed the previous Conservative government for this whole mess.
For the budget deficit.
Yeah, she called it a black hole in the finances. But whoever's fault it is, they need to find a way to fix it. And it seems like they're trying to do that by targeting the wealthy, but also by making cuts in other areas.
Like what kind of cuts?
Well, we've seen cuts to things like winter fuel payments for retirees and funding for infrastructure projects.
So it's not just about millionaires leaving. It's about the whole country trying to deal with these financial problems.
Exactly. It's a much bigger issue.
And it makes you wonder, what does all of this millionaire migration really mean in the long run? I mean, what are the implications for the UK?
Well, it's a complex situation with a lot of potential consequences. When millionaires leave, they don't just take their money, they take their ability to invest, to create jobs, to bring new ideas. It can lead to what's called brain drain, a loss of talent and expertise that can really hurt economic growth.
Right. And then there's the shrinking tax base, too. Fewer wealthy people paying taxes means less money for public services, infrastructure, education, all the things that make a society function.
Exactly. It's like a domino effect. It impacts everything. While some people say that a few thousand millionaires leaving won't really hurt the UK economy, others are worried about the long-term effects. They see it as a warning sign that the UK needs to change its policies and priorities if it wants to stay competitive globally.
So on one hand, you've got this urgent need to fix the budget deficit, and on the other hand, you've got this long-term goal of promoting economic growth and attracting talent and investment.
Right. It's a tough balancing act.
For sure. And it's not just a UK problem either. This millionaire migration is happening all over the world.
That's true. It's reshaping the global landscape. The UK might be losing millionaires, but other countries are gaining them, like the UAE, as we talked about.
Right. And all this movement of wealth and talent, it's bound to have some pretty big consequences down the line.
Definitely. We're seeing a global reshuffling of resources. It's going to shape geopolitics for years to come. It raises some big questions about the future of nation states, the role of global capital, the potential for even more inequality within and between countries.
Wow. So we've looked at the reasons why millionaires are leaving the UK, the possible consequences, and the bigger global context. But it's important to remember that all of this is ultimately about people.
Absolutely. Behind the numbers, there are real stories. Families making tough choices, entrepreneurs weighing their options, communities feeling the effects of these changes.
It's easy to get caught up in the big picture, but it's important to remember the human side of things.
I agree. Maybe the most important takeaway from all of this is that while we can analyze trends and make predictions, the human element is what's really driving these changes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into millionaire migration, let's shift our focus from the numbers to the people. Instead of asking, what does this mean for the economy? Let's ask, what does this mean for the individuals making these life-changing decisions?
That's a great way to put it, and it leads to a really interesting question. If you were a millionaire thinking about leaving the UK, what would make you actually do it?
And what would make you stay? Yeah, it goes beyond just the money, right? It's about like your values, your lifestyle, what you want for your family.
Exactly. For some people, it might be that feeling of not being welcome anymore, like their contributions don't matter, or maybe they just want more stability. Less of this political and economic chaos that's going on in the UK.
And some people are probably drawn to those up-and-coming places like the UAE,
Yeah.
right? All that potential for big rewards and a more exciting lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole mix of motivations. But I think it shows that this millionaire migration isn't just about money. It's about people trying to find a place where they can really thrive personally and professionally.
So it all comes back to individual choices,
Yeah.
right? Each person has their own reasons, their own dreams.
Right. And as we've seen with the UK, those individual choices can have huge consequences for the whole country. Everything from how much tax money the government gets to how the economy grows to the social fabric of the nation.
Like a butterfly effect.
No, yeah, kind of. And it's a situation that's constantly changing. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. Will the UK figure out how to stop millionaires from leaving? Will the UAE keep attracting all this wealth from around the world? And what about other countries dealing with the same kinds of challenges and opportunities?
So many questions. Yeah, this is definitely something that will keep economists and policymakers busy for a while, and podcasters like us too.
Absolutely. So to wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with this thought. The world is always changing. Wealth is moving, people are moving, and the landscape is shifting. It's a time of uncertainty, for sure, but it's also a time of huge opportunity. And maybe if we can understand what's driving all of this, we can navigate these changes and build a future that works for everyone, not just the lucky few.
Well said. I couldn't have put it better myself. And thanks to all of you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep those conversations going.